There's an old saying in cybersecurity, attackers only have to be right once. And that's still true, but this week we tackled the question of how long can they stay right before anyone stops them or even notices. We're looking at a router that appears to have shipped with a hidden administrative path that researchers had been warning about for years. A phishing kit designed so the malicious page doesn't exist until your browser creates it, and CISA turning one of the world's most capable AI models on its own code, hoping to find vulnerabilities before someone else does. This is Initial Access. I'm Sean McMillan, Community Manager here at Bishop Fox, and joining me this week are Richard Brown, Senior Managing Operator 2, and Sergio Villegas, Senior Managing Analyst 2. Gentlemen, thanks for joining.
Sure. That didn't take 3 times.
Absolutely. This is the crew. This is what we got today.
Professional.
I love it. Now, before we get into the headlines, a few things coming up around Bishop Fox. This Thursday, July 16th, Alith Dennis is leading a free workshop on building pressure-proof pretexts. If you've ever wondered how experienced social engineers create believable stories that hold up under scrutiny, not just what to say, but how to adapt when things go sideways, this is for you. Then on July 23rd, Richard Brown, our own Richard Brown, with Brad Alaska and Matthew Lipinski, are hosting a virtual session on the prioritization problem, why having more security findings doesn't necessarily mean you're reducing more risk, and how offensive security can help separate signal from noise. And if you are going to San Diego Comic-Con later this month, catch Alith Dennis on the panel Inside the Hacker's Mind, where she'll join fellow security practitioners to compare Hollywood hacking with the real thing, from social engineering to AI-driven attacks. You'll find registration links and event details for all of those in the show notes. Richard, I forgot to ask you, what can you say about your upcoming session? What can people take away from that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is a lot of times you get an influx of findings and think you're doing good, but that's not always the case, especially in this new world with CVEs, right? We've seen probably over the last few months, thousands of CVEs that come in that are AI generated. And while they are valid, there's a lot to go into them and they're a little deeper than the surface.
Yeah.
But yeah, there'll be more.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'll be there. I'm always there. All right, let's get into the top stories. Our first story this week starts with what looked like another router vulnerability. CERT published an advisory warning about what it described as an undocumented authentication backdoor in several Tenda routers. If normal authentication failed, the firmware would just try another credential stored in the device itself, granting administrator access without even checking the username. It doesn't have a patch. There's no real response from the vendor, just a warning to disable remote management. Cross your fingers, I guess, and hope for the best. But that's not really the full story. We're going to talk to someone in a moment who's done a lot of research on these. But first, I kind of want to get your guys' take on this. What's when a hidden authentication path shows no trace of accident, how do researchers weigh the difference between a bug and deliberate access mechanisms?
Yeah, and I really love how you start with another router vulnerability, right?
Another week, another route. Yeah.
Yeah.
Add to the list.
I think it's really interesting. The question you said, right? Like the perspective of, is this a supply chain attack where the certain components were changed and that's
Right.
why we have this kind of hidden thing? Or was this an actual mistake but no one is kind of acknowledging that, right? That is what I'm thinking right now. And I think it doesn't, in certain way, it doesn't really matter. The issue is still in there, right? And they need to look at and they need to look at the root cause of this. Particularly, I don't know, I think, even though I was joking, right, it's important to see that routers are being hit week after week, and they are a high value target for backdoors, basically, right? So it doesn't surprise me. These type of devices are spread across the globe, quite literally, right?
Yeah.
And something that I'm not seeing right away is kind of a kind of a fix or a better way to fix it, right? I know there is some information from the vendor updating this, but normally what we have is kind of a, hey, go and patch this urgently. But I'm not seeing that same level of concern. So I don't know what is going
Yeah.
on in the backend or what is happening, right? That those are my initial
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it even feels like there's no timeline here. Like if an attacker can take advantage of this, they take advantage of it until the device is replaced, right?
Yep.
Like, I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know what else could be done.
Unfortunately, yeah. Firmware boot, maybe. Going back to, is this a bug or not? It definitely sounds like this was a developer who coded this in there while they were testing it to be able to access it without having to log in each time, right? And then forgot to remove it.
Sure.
But like Sergio's saying, the real issue is it's out there. You shouldn't have remote access on your personal routers anyway if you're exposing to the internet, right? This is for home users, not commercial users. Obviously, they have different purposes. But as a home user,
Sure.
you should never need to remote into your device from outside. There are caveats. I know some of the network bros are going to hit me up and say that that's how, but in the general public does not need remote access. But this is a
Your
bad
Uncle
one. This is
Steve
like,
doesn't need it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. This one, if I remember correctly, you just send it any username in a failed password and it logs you in as the admin with the admin password.
Right.
I think, and I believe Matt's going to touch on it, but unfortunately, this is just a device that people are just attacking now. I don't think Tenda has a lot of market share for residential in America, but definitely other countries. This is
Yeah.
huge. China,
I was not even
Asia.
familiar with them until
Mhm.
this came out, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's actually huge, huge market. And something
Mhm.
interesting Richard just mentioned, right? Like, yes, typically this is your home users that will have this type of devices, but I think for corporations the message is, hey, do you have teams like hacking teams that buy devices and connect them inside your network?
That's
Well,
true.
maybe take a look at us, right? Like
One of these
that's
hooked up
interesting
in your
for
network is yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well,
it's a really interesting one for sure.
well, one thing that kept kind of coming up while we were prepping this episode was that this story is not actually really new. It's a new headline, but it's not a new story. So Matt Evans, better known online as U-Turn, has been reverse engineering these Tenda routers for years. And in fact, when this came out, his reaction was not surprise. It was much more like, yeah, I know. So we wanted to bring him online and add a little context to the CVE, but more importantly, to the broader story of why these devices have developed the reputation they have and why some research seems to sit unnoticed until someone else kind of trips over it. Here's our conversation. Matt Evans, better known online as U-Turn, is an IoT security researcher who spent years reverse engineering embedded devices and uncovering vulnerabilities in Tenda routers long before this week's advisory. In fact, when the CERT write-up came out, Matt's reaction wasn't surprise. It was something more akin to took you long enough. Matt, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, happy to be here.
This is a story that kind of came about. We found it and started talking about it, and we got connected. And we thought that this was a much more interesting take than just talking about the headline. So I'm curious with your reaction, like when this advisory first landed, what were your thoughts?
So confusion, honestly. So I received a message talking about it in a group chat, and my initial response was, "Oh yeah, I've seen this one. I published about it a year ago." And I went and found the CVE and I linked it. And mulling that through my head, I was like, I'm pretty sure that I'm not the first one to have seen it, even.
Yeah,
Yeah, and just dug in from there. Just more and more confusion as I sort of unpacked it.
yeah. Down the rabbit hole we go.
Yeah.
So you've been really working with these Tenda, this firmware for years. Um, what can you say about how long it took for this to be a headline?
Well, what's interesting is I published the RZ admin credentials as a vulnerability because they're hard coded and you're not prompted to change them when you set up the device, which GDPR hates. They hate if you
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
But they are changeable in the UI. And in fact, Tenda, as far back as 2019, as far as I could see, actually publishes that the RZ admin credentials exist in their user guide for the firmware. So you have, it's published now as a cert advisory saying it's an undocumented backdoor. You go back to my CVE last year, where I document that it exists. I found another write-up by a security researcher that goes by Boschko, I believe it was, as far back as I think 2022. And then you can find the W15E user guide, which also covers down on the W18E and the W20E that details the RZ admin credentials back in 2019. So this particular piece of the puzzle has existed forever and has been documented forever for the existence of these devices. What's more baffling to me is it's not that Tenda is secure because, the CERT or whoever published this missed the mark on the description. They're very insecure, right?
Yeah.
My write-ups are, I think, somewhere between 7 and 12 CVEs each, and that's pretty short sprints on them. So for this to be the headline is what confuses me the most, right? These are documented, but both the write-up from Boschko in 2022 and my write-up, there's also guest credentials where you can log in as guest/guest, and that gives you admin credentials, and that is unchangeable. And if you're going to talk about undocumented backdoor, that's much closer because that's not in the user guide.
You mentioned that you had trouble getting people interested in this research in the first place. Why do you think Tenda has kind of gotten this reputation, this acceptance as just insecure?
So the people I reached out to were, the likes of ZDI and SSD Disclosure. ZDI explicitly told me when I reached out to them that they were not interested in Tenda and IPCOM device vulnerabilities. They're a shared sort of code base, hardware base.
Gotcha.
Right? And then SSD Disclosure has it listed as out of scope. And for as long as I've seen, has always had it listed out of scope. And I think it's because if they were to try and pay somebody for a Tenda vulnerability, they would very quickly bankrupt. If you go and search Tenda vulnerabilities over the last 4 years, they're approaching 2,000 CVEs published.
That's not a good number.
No, that's an awful number.
That's not a good number.
Yeah.
Wow. You actually once described Tenda as a wasp juice shop of IoT, which I kind of love that phrasing. For someone who's interested in getting into firmware analysis, IoT research, that kind of stuff, what is it about these devices? I mean, you kind of said they're full of possibilities. Yeah. Let's say it politely, they're full of possibilities, right? How do these rate for like intro to IoT devices?
So a really good anecdote for that is I was trying to teach my, I want to say at the time, 10-year-old son, kind of what I was doing with these devices and why I was purchasing them and, hooking them up at the dinner table. And I sit down with him and I pull open Firefox Dev Tools and I'm setting up the router and I'm showing him, oh, this is communication between my device and the router that's over here. And as I'm setting up, it prompts you to change the password. And so I change the password and I show him the communication, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I say, this told the router to change the password. Now, what do you think should happen if I take this and I send it with a new password now that there's a password on the device? And, we talk through coming to the conclusion that, well, it shouldn't accept the new password. So we try it out and sure enough, it accepts the new password. So we're talking like you can stumble into them. Yeah. Literally.
So how many CVEs has your 10-year-old found.
I guess he's a co-author to one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I should put his name on the write-up.
So with all the time that you have spent with these devices, do you kind of recall a time where your mindset shifted from, oh, neat, another bug, or like discovery, to more of an acceptance of like these things are just full of them?
Do you mean Tenda specifically or
Yeah.
embedded as a whole? Okay.
Yeah,
So
let's start
Tenda,
with Tenda specifically, I guess.
so Tenda specifically, I think the nail in the coffin was really walking through some of my more basic assumptions, right? Obviously, stack smashing and command injection, like, it leads you to believe, oh, these are awful. But it was when I attempted access from the guest network. I set up the guest network and I went on there and I was watching PCAP and I could see ARP from the main network. And what I realized was the only isolation between these two networks was subnetting, DHCP subnetting. There was nothing else. So from the guest network, I was able to set my IP to the main network and access the web dashboard.
Wow. Yeah.
And that was really just like, oh, we're not just missing the basics on sprintf into system. We're wholly missing the mark on how to architecture these things.
It does feel like when we talk about product reviews and whatnot, like who was this recommended for? I feel like it's guys like you, like security researchers. That's who should be buying this stuff.
Yeah, it's like a CTF in a box every time I pick one up.
I guess if there's one lesson that listeners or viewers should take away from this, is it don't buy Tenda, or like is there a bigger picture, like broad lesson here?
Don't buy Tenda is a good lesson to take away. There is a broader lesson though, because like I mentioned before, Tenda also runs IPCOM, or IPCOM runs Tenda. I forget the directionality there. But if you are watching the news on sort of the router wars going on with the FCC, with TP-Link, and then Wendell and team over at Level 1 Techs breaking that there's an enable SSH listener on your Netgear routers, right? I think the bigger thing to take away here is that the things you buy can be untrusted surface, right? To include your industrial or enterprise devices, to include the modem or router from your ISP, to include the thing you pick up from Best Buy. These are really just commodity devices. And I think just as a whole, companies need to be doing better on these.
Yeah. We talk about trust on the show a lot and how so many attacks are based on assumptions and trust. And I think to step back out of the security world and into the consumer world and think of the trust that is placed in a router, Tenda or otherwise, you just go to 99.9% of people just go to Best Buy, buy a router, plug it in. That's the amount of thought that goes into it, but yeah.
Right.
Of course, we will link a write-up, put a link to your write-up in the show notes. But if people want to learn more about your work and your research, where can they find you?
Same place as the write-up, blog.uturn.dev. That has a link to my LinkedIn as well. If anybody wants to reach out to me, they can reach out to me there. And I'm hoping to publish some more write-ups soon as some stuff comes out of embargo.
Yeah, well, keep us in the loop. We'd love to have you back. Matt, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Thanks again to Matt for joining us. That was very fun. Now, in that Tenda story, the challenge was finding something that had been there for a very long time. The next story is kind of the opposite of that, where attackers have built a phishing kit specifically so there's nothing to find until the victim's own browser assembles it. And then the show note says, insert evil laugh. So I guess I'll go, mwahaha. Traditional phishing has a problem. Email gateways, sandboxes, and automated scanners have gotten pretty good at spotting malicious pages before anyone can click the nasty links inside. So attackers, just like Dr. Ian Malcolm would say life does, found a way. Researchers are tracking a phishing kit called EvilTokens that delivers what looks like an inert HTML page. There's nothing for it to find, nothing malicious for a gateway to inspect, because it doesn't actually exist yet. Only after the victim opens it does JavaScript decrypt the real content inside the browser. It doesn't steal any credentials directly or anything, but it walks you through Microsoft's legitimate device code authentication flow and tricks you into authorizing the attack yourself. So you're there all along. You're just completely invisible. Nothing can detect you until all those checks are out of the picture. So I guess, what does it mean for an attacker to design a phishing kit around a gap like this between what a scanner sees and then what the browser actually renders?
Yeah. So I want to break this out a little bit, because I think there's some mud in the water. What they're doing is not a novel thing, right? When you look at social engineering, and we had GoFish back in the day, right? Before then, we had the Kali kits. We had GoFish. It was able to spin up this web server that you're able to do your tracking, right? And then when that started getting popped all the time, then we had to branch out of there, and we started getting into MFAs. And then Evil Nginx came out, and we started getting into the token grabbing, right? We're able to do these cloning of legitimate sessions and pass it around and grab your token as if you were going to there, because we were the man in the middle. When we discovered, I didn't make it up, but when we discovered we could use HTML and JavaScript in emails, right, that allowed us to obfuscate some of the things. We're able to do script tags and hide it, right? So I want to establish what they're doing is a new approach to existing attacks that they're making their own and having wild success with it, right? So, but yeah, when you look at, this is what we talked about eons ago when I said the heebie-jeebies, right? The attacks that give me the heebie-jeebies are the ones that come through and they pass every test. And me, as a security person, expecting an email from Sean, will click it, not knowing Sean's already been compromised. I've not been sent this link to get my token. I log in, I do my SSO, it looks legitimate. I see the email, reject it, and I move on. But I've already logged in, and now they have my token, which very rarely rolls out, right? Unless you actually log out and kill that refresh token. So they're having wild success with what I will say is existing approaches. They're just doing great with it, and I believe it's like $1,000 to get signed up for this. Not advocating go sign up for it, but it's $1,000 to have this entire ecosystem at your disposal, where they're using AI to generate these lures, and it's just crazy right now.
It doesn't take much to make that back, you know?
Yeah. And dissecting this even further, right? Like, this is the context is important, right? Like when you look in like darknet forums, what actors are discussing or what they are selling to try and set very large and successful phishing campaigns, what they actually sell is phishing kits. Is these pieces of workflows to make the thing work, right?
Yeah.
Not really, because a phishing is not like, yeah, I got an access to an account, I compromise it, I will literally write manually an email to this person. No, it's a bit more complex than that. The phishing kits is kind of that big part of it, right? And what they are doing, it's funny because it's actually a security technique. What you want to have is kind of a human in the loop system where only when an actual user with his actual like account and the different properties that a user makes an user can see and render that website, right? It's actually kind of a security thing. And they're using a security thing to bypass the mechanism of detecting the malicious part, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense, because whenever the scanners try to read the thing, they will see nothing, and they can't really render it because it doesn't exist until they go to the user, to a real account. This is normal, right? That's why we see a lot of like actors trying to scan in antivirus sites, in VirusTotal, in your Antidote run, because they want to see the level of detection and what the scanners are actually looking for, right? Like those different hooks and how those systems look like. Because at the end of the day, it's not real machines that are trying to open the email. It's some sort of like heuristic or virtualized system backend. So it's fairly easy not going to say it's like, yeah, let's do it today, right? But it's really
Yeah.
easy to detect you're being detected. So that's why these phishing kits are really important, right? Like being able to identify the phishing kit. I wonder how long this has been active live, because this seems sophisticated. This seems, from my perspective, right, like really cool that they can use render at the human at once the human actually opens it. So yeah, it will look 100% legitimate, right? Like
Yeah.
even like what Richard just mentioned, right? Like don't go and register, but yeah, you can create an actually legitimate system, logging into the legitimate Microsoft system to authenticate externally, right? I think that's the scary part. You will
Yeah.
actually legitimately log in to a Microsoft site, only something else will have access.
Yeah. That's why I stay logged out of most of my Microsoft stuff. You know, can't
Yeah.
reach me, can't get me. How does an offensive operator think about the sectors that this kit is hitting as far as like technology, financial services, consulting versus the sectors that seem to not really be going through it, so to say?
From an offensive perspective, it's really hard because it's uncommon to test phishing or to test or use phishing techniques like this. Unless you're actually doing like a phishing scenario, but that's more like awareness training in companies, right? Where you get like, hey, congratulations, you didn't click on the thing,
You
right?
reported, right? Yeah.
But actually testing these, I think this is different, right? Like normally operators, from what I've seen, and pen testers, they don't usually try for with that real phishing kits to see what hits, right? So it's a little ambiguous from my perspective.
Well, yeah, and we look at the attack, right? This is synonymous with pass to hash. I'm passing a hash of your password. I don't have your password. I don't have your credentials. So I only have access to the things where this SSO and auth0 token are allowed. Who uses those? Tech firms. They have a lot of stuff integrated
Yeah.
together, right? Who doesn't use those? Small businesses, hospitals, right? They use the card activations, right? So the attack has to go to places that are using that integration for me to get the most breadth, because that you're when I have a credential, I have unlimited time. I log in, I look around, I log out, log in, look around, right? When I have a token, I have a fixed amount of time that's going to expire. And the hope is it refreshes. But if it doesn't, I have, we'll say 10 hours. I have 10 hours to pillage. I'm sending emails out. I'm grabbing all your documents and grabbing what I can before that time expires. But again, it's what all can I touch in those tech firms, the banking firms? They're the ones that are integrating with with Azure and having that reach go farther than most places do.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of a bigger problem, right? Let's say you as a pen tester, as an operator, get to the point where you get an active live session, right? Like, yeah, the phishing kit doesn't matter. You got that active session somewhere else, and I think that's why we don't really test for it, because it's more about like, hey, what if I have a session? What's the damage I can do with it, right? Setting the whole scenario to get to that point, that's perhaps the complex part, and that's why we don't test for that. But yeah, I think previous weeks we have discussed, right? Like, imagine you get to, I don't know how much access Richard has, but imagine you get to Richard's Microsoft account, right? Like, where can you go from there?
Yeah, and the other thing is like it's not undetectable, right? But again, I'm not logging in. I'm using what you already have access to. So smash and grab kind of thing. But
yeah. Well, let's talk about this from Security Week. Reuters reported that CISA has started using Anthropic's Mythos model to scan government code repositories for vulnerabilities. On paper, makes sense, right? Use an AI model to find your bugs faster. But the interesting thing here is, yes, CISA's using AI, but this is the same model capable of helping defenders that attackers can use as well. So it kind of feels like for the first time, maybe both sides are hopping into the same tool And like, where's the advantage going to end up? I mean, historically, maybe we're thinking the attackers, but what do you make of this kind of new race? I guess wacky races, right?
Yeah. I think the defenders are always going to be behind the attackers, and that's not insulting the blue team at all. I think you said at the beginning of the episode, right? We only got to be right once. That's
Right.
it. So you're watching 56 doors. I'm just knocking on anyone, and this one opens, and now I'm in. So I think they're always going to be behind us in that realm. Mythos, however you want to pronounce it, definitely is going to help even the playing field a little more, but it's still going to be from an attacker perspective. It's going to be, hey, how do I get access to this function? And now we're there. Cool. How do I protect it? I don't know. I don't know how you protect it, but now, but it's vulnerable to something. And that's
Look
going
what
to be
I found.
that battle. Because again, defending the vulnerability is much harder than discovering the vulnerability. I can find a way into your door. How do you protect that door from me getting back in later?
Yeah.
And we'll talk about this more on your upcoming session, the prioritization problem. Because that's exactly what it is, right?
Yeah. And I think this headline is great for like, do you have that elephant still? Yeah, we need to get that elephant back in the room. Yeah, but I think Richard set it up perfectly, right? Like, I have so much to protect as a defender. So much. I have to protect the users, their laptops, the cloud infrastructure, the tokens, it's a lot, right? It's not easy. And when you look at the perspective of how large cybersecurity teams are in comparison of the size of the organizations, right? They're super small. It's not enough number of people to protect line. And even with the number of correct of people, will that be enough? I don't know, right? Like, again, the phrase, I agree, it's perfect. Or you only have to fail once, right? Like, I had a quick story from today. So I have in my house, I have biometric access, and the problem was not the access, but my father-in-law, he didn't close the door correctly when he was going outside, right? And one of my cats ran away. Anyway, I found the cat, luckily. But yeah,
you had me worried.
No,
Where's
we
the
found the
cat?
cat. But I think that's put it in perspective, right? Like, what if you also have to protect from what people are exporting from your organization, like how much data it's in like random Dropbox accounts, how much their data we're sending through email. So it's not only about like protecting from people getting in, but also protecting data and resources from going out, right? It's a lot. It's a really, really, I love that Richard said, like, not to insult the defending team, right? But it's a hard job, right?
Yeah.
It's a hard job. And the headlines every week don't lie.
Right.
They are being attacked.
Yeah. Because that one time that attackers get it right, it makes a headline. The other 55 doors in your analogy are not a news story. That's just people doing their job. Yep. I think the other thing, obviously here, I should go get that elephant. I really is that like CISA maybe doesn't have the best track record with dealing with Anthropic. After it was labeled a supply chain risk, and the admittedly very bumpy road that has brought it to being used at CISA. I guess, what does that say about the real state of AI adoption in government?
I think the road's still long, especially when you think about the enforcement of policies. You can make a policy all you want. What's the repercussions for not following it? We see this now with a lot of companies where they have these very intricate contracts that are not enforceable, and you sign away your rights to your data and everything, right? But again, when they say, cool, I'm keeping your data and not letting it go, what's the repercussion? I think we're going to have the same thing with AI, where we're going to have the situation where CISA is able to do things because they're a government agency that we can't do as civilians. And there's going to be like, that's okay. We can do it, but you can't do it. We can find all these vulnerabilities and patch them and do all this stuff, but you can't do that because you don't know how to handle it. And then when we build our own version of this and they take it away from, right, it's always going to be this government versus individual battle.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
again, what's the repercussion if they violate these rules versus if we violate these rules? I go to
Yeah.
jail. They get slap on hand.
This should have been our July 4th episode to talk about individual freedom versus government overreach versus,
Yeah.
It's tricky, like you said, about these. What's the enforcement? What's the penalty? I'm reminded of, I believe it was in the first Freakonomics book when they talked about a daycare that had one parent that was late a couple times, so they introduced a fee and to kind of stop them. But what they found was now people know that I can be late and it's only $5. Sweet.
Mhm.
So they're late all the
Yeah.
time because now there's a monetary value attached to it. And that's what I would fear with something like this is like,
Yeah.
write up an enforcement, but like I mean, unless it's a big deal, I don't know that it's, gonna be a super effective.
Yep. And if they make 20 an hour, it's just 15 now, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
No. So something I'm thinking that is important is, at least I'm kind of positive, or yeah, I'm positive that this is a good thing that CISA is using this against government assets, right? The reason why is because at the end of the day, even though we laugh at when governments get hacked and we get them into the
No, we don't.
headlines,
Nation state.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would never.
it's always like random funny stories at Reddit, right? Like, yeah, government got hacked again. But at the end of the day, it's resources for the people. It's data of the people,
Yeah.
right? So from my perspective, I prefer them using something like AI, like really advanced AI, to protect systems that protect my data. So I think it's a
Yeah.
good thing, right? I think it's perfect. I think it's a good use of resources at the end of the day.
Well, I think that's a good wrapping up point there. I always like to wrap on a little ray of sunshine. We
Mhm.
talk about all these terrible things, little ray
Yeah.
of sunshine. We all might be a little more secure because of it. So, Richard, Sergio, thank you so much for stopping by today. And of course, a special thanks to Matt Evans for joining earlier. If you enjoyed the show, share it with a friend or coworker. And if you'd like to keep the conversation going, join us in the Bishop Fox Discord server or over on the Bishop Fox subreddit. Yes, that's right. We have one now where we talk about the research we're publishing, the stories we're covering, maybe the giant stuffed elephant that I wheel out from time to time on the podcast. You'll find links to both communities as well as everything we discussed in today's show notes. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, and we'll catch you next week.